course, one of the objectives of the association is to cooperate with like-minded organisations. We'll obviously be cooperating with Hong Kong Watch and with Reporters Without Borders. The point of Hong Kong Watch is to influence policymakers in Britain, well, not only in Britain, but primarily in Britain. And I'm very interested to know how much awareness you find of what's happening in Hong Kong. I mean, do people get it?
Prior to starting Hong Kong Watch, I just in my personal capacity been speaking out on Hong Kong and had hosted a number of very prominent Hong Kong activists who visited London, took them to see MPs, and just really noticed how few MPs I could get meetings with and how low the level of awareness was then. I think it's changed a huge amount now. Primarily because of events. I think the 2019 protests, the national security law in 2020 really did wake people up, and people became a lot more interested and engaged. But I also think that our work and then the work of other organizations that have been set up subsequently has also helped. So now I would say there's a really good number of members of Parliament and members of the House of Lords on all sides, in all parties, who are regularly interested, who are regularly raising questions, tabling debates. Of course, in recent months, and it's no surprise, the war in Ukraine has obviously taken priority, and so attention has probably fallen a little bit. But we have many friends in Parliament who we can always turn to ask them to raise particular issues. So I think it's a much better position now than it was 5 years ago.
You know, what always is so interesting to me, for many years, Hong Kong was the place where you had to go to learn about history of China, because on the mainland itself, the history was being rewritten. That old joke they used to have in the Soviet Union, who can tell what will happen tomorrow? Who can tell what is happening now? And people say, well, it's easy to know what's happening now, but who can tell really what the history is? Because it keeps changing. So as the regimes changed from Mao to Deng, etc., they kept rewriting history. And if you wanted to find out what was happening, you went to researchers and to the media in Hong Kong. So I think not only is it feasible, but I think we have a duty to maintain that great Hong Kong tradition of keeping alive the flow of information and keeping alive a record of history that isn't distorted by the regime. I know there are initiatives out there to do this, and I hope that people in this room and elsewhere can support them, because it's really important. They will rewrite history.
With the death of the Apple Daily and the other pro-democracy or independent media in Hong Kong, and with the growth of the Hong Kong diaspora, so many Hong Kongers in this country, but also in Canada, America, Australia, and elsewhere, I think there is both a need for a Chinese language independent media outlet outside Hong Kong, and there's surely a market for it. So I hope something like that could be established.
New York Times, they have a special issue on California every day. CNN's got a Twitter on everything on the Jubilee, the Platinum Jubilee, and also Ukraine and that kind of thing. Whether these two big medias, if you can align, that they set up kind of such a page, and then all the people in Hong Kong now, as you said, can become citizen journalists, and they can contribute on Twitter or something like that. So that, do you think it would be possible?
I think I'm going to give you an answer which you won't like, which is, you know, I've worked for international publications for actually a very long time. They don't like outsiders telling them, you know, we'll have a page on this or we'll have a section on that. But that doesn't mean you can't generate this information independently and get it picked up by these more global organizations. I think the reality is, it's the same as what everybody says about the future of Hong Kong. Ultimately, it's in the hands of the people of Hong Kong. It's not going to, no change will come ultimately from outside. But in the meantime, here we are in the United Kingdom. As you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to associate with well-known established media platforms. I'm actually quite optimistic that this can be done. You know, Hong Kong people are very resourceful, very able to do stuff, and I have great confidence in the ability.
We now have a training program to provide assistance for safety, for journalists online and physical safety. We already trained more than 350 China-based journalists, including a lot of them located in Hong Kong. I believe together with this new association, we can really make the difference and ensure journalism can go on Hong Kong no matter what the government does. Hong Kong-based journalists can receive support from outside of Hong Kong, where it's still possible to provide this support. And Reporters Without Borders will do everything it can to be associated to this project, to bring its own ways to support journalists. And I believe together we can do a lot, and that we will be on your side, and hopefully until a full press freedom is reinstalled in Hong Kong, and hopefully until one day we see a much higher level of press freedom in the rest of China too.
This month of June is a month of several key anniversaries for Hong Kong, none of which are anything to celebrate, all of which are times of sadness and mourning and reflection. I think remembering anniversaries provides us with an opportunity to reflect, to think about those who lost their lives or who have been arrested and jailed and who remain in jail. But it also gives us an opportunity to shine a light on the current situation, to raise awareness with other people, and to think about what we do for the future. And I think that's what you are clearly doing through this event here. We all know that it's going to be long, it's going to be challenging, but I believe that, as I said earlier, history shows that dictatorships don't last forever. And so as hard as it seems, we mustn't lose hope. We must hold on to the hope that one day, we don't know when that day will come, but one day Hong Kong and indeed China will be free. So.